We're joined now by Mr. Bartłomiej Kot. He's Programme Director at the Warsaw Security Forum. Mr. Kot, welcome to TVP World. Thank you for joining us. So this weekend has been rather fiery in Poland. Do we have any news on what caused those fires? Because they just all seem to happen in a very short period of time, unexpectedly, as many would say. I know it's early days, but is there any information that you can share with us?
Well, there's nothing that I could actually tie those incidents directly to Russian influence, because this is probably what you're asking about. The truth is, however, that we have already a huge amount of Russian influence all across Europe. There were also some reports related to the fact that the Russian sabotage groups were present in many countries in Europe, and that some of the covert operations that Russia might be undertaking are not only related directly only to espionage activities, but also to sabotage activities. Those could, of course, include the acts of arson that could be possibly similar to what happened recently in Poland. But this is actually right now a matter of the actions of the prosecutor's office to investigate those incidents that happened in Poland recently, with no clear, at this moment, I would say, direct link to the Russian sabotage activity that I could share with you or tell you that this is certainly an act of Russian influence. Although you have to take into account that since people are asking those questions, this could indicate that Russia is already conducting a series of, I would say, acts of a cognitive war against European societies.
Especially since what Russia loves doing is causing a stir and unrest. So, but having that in mind, what do you think are key tactics and strategies employed by the Russian and Belarusian agents to infiltrate the Polish society, the internet and other aspects of public life? Because, for instance, we've seen already recent incidents of different tactics, such as detention even of FSB agents in Ukraine. Do we see something similar happening in Poland, or is it more intricate? Some mention that, in fact, now the level of cyber attacks in Warsaw is comparable to the ones happening in Kyiv.
Well, Russia is already at war with NATO, even if we do not consider certain acts as those that surpass the threshold of a conventional warfare. But those actions, as I already nicknamed that, a cognitive war, this is already happening. And this could be, of course, the acts of sabotage. This could be the acts of espionage. Those are all the actions that are aimed at actually scaring us, simply speaking, influencing our way of thinking about what Russians can do and what they are actually already doing all across Europe. This is not only disinformation and cyber warfare, because for many years people were referring to Russian influence mainly on the level of disinformation activities and cyber warfare. This is currently way beyond that. As I said, there is a lot of Russian influence, direct Russian influence. As you also mentioned, that literally spies all across Europe that can have the influence on political parties, that can have influence on political processes. And this is all what we already are experiencing also in Poland, with the case of course, a judge who fled to Belarus.
Yeah, I mean, with you mentioned, of course, this, I suppose the umbrella term is hybrid warfare, right? And it comes as no surprise, I guess, to most that this is being used, technology is being used to influence elections and so on. But this is very kinetic. It's actually on the ground, it's happening, things are burning and so on. Are these spies, agitators, activists, whatever you want to call them, are they new or have they been in place? In other words, are they sleeper cells?
Well, I would say that's a mixed group, certainly. It was always the case that throughout the years, Russia and Belarus, actually, it's good that we also mentioned Belarus, because, for example, in Poland, I would say that Belarusian intelligence is also very much present. They were investing in human capabilities, so they were investing in actually agents that were placed in different parts of Europe, and they were conducting actually activities that were out of the, I could even nickname that a Cold War toolbox of how you conduct espionage. A lot of Western European agencies, since the end of the Cold War, did not invest a lot of money and effort into the human intelligence. They were rather actually focusing on signal intelligence, as you also mentioned, that cyber kind of activities, etc., etc. Right now, I could say that the espionage activities as such, the intelligence activities are coming back to the Cold War toolbox, literally speaking. So it is all still all about humans and where they're placed, what kind of information they possess, what kind of influence they have. So it's not only cyber, it's not only even hybrid, it's also very kinetic.
Right.
And to be honest, I do not want to play devil's advocate, but I feel curiosity is forcing me to. Now, what do you think are the potential consequences for Poland and the region if now the Russian and Belarusian intelligence influence and destabilization efforts are left unchecked? And what steps do you think should be now prioritized to mitigate potential crisis?
Well, they cannot be left unchecked. Let me put it that way. We mustn't let them be unchecked because those actions are happening all across Europe. Right now, we are in the times of European elections, facing European elections. This is like also a very, I would say, hot period for those kind of actions that are aimed at influencing our activities, influencing our decision process, etc., etc. But there are at least, I would say, two different things that we can do. First one is to restore our counterintelligence abilities, because we left that in dark for too long. We didn't invest that much money as it was needed. We didn't employ that many people in those counterintelligence services. And secondly, I would say to establish something like a whole of society total defense approach, because also the parts of the critical infrastructure that could be targeted by the sabotage groups, they need protections that is way beyond only security services that you would employ, like a civil security services that you would employ. It is a need of many people and efforts of many people to be present, to be able to spot the danger, to be able to react.
So does that mean that there's a role that the ordinary man or woman in the streets can play? And how does that person become educated to this risk?
Yes, it is. It is actually, as I said, the approach of a total defense. It means that, basically speaking, every single citizen is playing its own role, their own role in the defense of the country. This is not only a matter of being part of the conscription, it's not only a matter of being a part of the military service, but it's also a matter of being able to spot the danger, to be also placed in this kind of a very tangible security of critical infrastructure. One of the very simplest aspects of that would be actually the education. Of course, it is. We were for years focusing on education that was based on spotting the danger in the disinformation area. But right now, we should be also educating people how to spot the danger that is very kinetic, and also if people are placed in critical points of how society, how the state acts in those institutions, they should be also protected by counterintelligence services. But this means that we would have to employ more people in counterintelligence. We would have to spend more money into counterintelligence, which is basically a point of reckoning right now for many countries, not only Poland.
And now, speaking of education, so what do you think, what lessons can be learned now from other countries, namely I'm talking about Ukraine, from their experiences in dealing with Russian influence and hybrid threats? How do you think that these insights might also influence now Poland's path forward?
I would say the first lesson learned is it is not only hybrid. It is very tangible, and those people could be placed, the so-called Russian agents of influence. They could be placed in many institutions of the state, and in fact, in the very beginning of the war in Ukraine, the Ukrainians were also able to spot that. There were cases of how certain people reacted that could imply that they weren't necessarily acting in favor of the Ukraine state of Yes, of the state, I would say. So the first thing is right now not only to educate people, but also certainly to screen some people, those who are like placed in the critical points of state. But this is a matter of actions for the counterintelligence services, because judges were a good example. I mean, Mr. Schmidt, or the one who fled to Belarus, was capable of gaining information that was actually secret without being properly screened by counterintelligence services. So we would have to restore the whole way of thinking about the state, the protection of information, and who we employ on certain posts, with an approach that we used to have during the Cold War, which is many people would say outdated, but still relevant.
Outdated, well, obviously not outdated as we're finding out, but it does have, as you say, echoes of the Cold War, and I suspect that certainly the older generation who went through that are a little bit wary of going back. You know, too many bad memories will be raised by it. Now, tell me, is it just this region, Poland and surrounding countries, that are most affected by this, or is it more widespread than that? This kind of spying.
This is, I would say, this is the whole Europe right now, not only Poland and the region. Many years, I mean, maybe not many, but 3 or 4 years ago, there were also cases of Russian spies that were actually caught in the Netherlands, for example. So especially in Benelux countries, this might be the case because this is actually a place where counterintelligence wasn't properly funded for years. This is also a place where there are certain even countries in the Western Europe that literally did not employ a proper even number of people in the intelligence services and counterintelligence services, because they were thinking in this end of history way of thinking, but Russians did not, and this is the case. So right now in Poland, we at least have the sense of urgency and the sense of being very close to the front line. But the front line in terms of intelligence, in terms of espionage, sabotage, it's not only one line that you could cross somewhere on a map. It is happening in whole Europe. And for certain, the Russian services, the Russian intelligence services will be looking for places where the counterintelligence is weaker. Also for the purpose of actually conducting those meetings or actions in those countries, because they know that in the places where the counterintelligence wasn't properly funded, they could act without being noticed, without being in danger of being caught red-handed.
So I gather from what you're saying is that we do have the tools, we do have the knowledge, it now takes time and courage and determination to perfect them. Well, thank you.
To restore them.
And restore them, in fact. Well, thank you so much, sir, for joining us and for your invaluable insights.
Thank you.